In the first video, we discussed 8 different topics that you needed and need to discuss with your partner before marriage, things that you need to be on the same page with, uh, page on with your spouse, things whether you think of bills and parenting styles and religion, faith and religion, or how to handle family dynamics and values to instill on your children and childhood, you know, trauma and things like that. And so we continue with that and get into number nine. I told you there were 15 that we were going to talk about in the previous video. And so we've covered 8 out of the 15. And so we continue with that. And here is number nine. Number nine is you need to discuss your partner expectations. What are their expectations? And this is broad, and make sure you understand what's the expectation when it comes to your role and function in their life. Whether as a guy, what is she expecting of you? As a lady, what is he expecting of you? And so these expectations covers all of those expectations. How you're going to manage your home, and what are you going to play, and how are you going to treat them, or talk to them, and what's what ask just ask it this way, ask your partner this way: what do you expect our relationship to be like? What do you expect our marriage to be like? What do you expect me as your husband or wife to be when we get married? What do you expect of me? And then you discuss those expectations and make sure that eventually you come to common ground where these expectations are realistic, are practical, and applicable. Because sometimes as humans, it is we tend to time have some unrealistic expectations, and sometimes we set the bar for our spouses, bars that are too high for us to climb. We don't meet those standards for ourselves, but we expect our partners to be able to meet them. And now when you don't discuss these things and you don't know what your partner thinks and expects of you and expects of out of the relationship, there's always going to be chaos. And the chaos is going to come because there are these unspoken and therefore unmet expectations. And then problems will get into the mix because of it. Again, as we talk about expectation, number 10 is financial expectation. Now, we've spoken about uh, bills earlier on a little bit, but now financial expectation. This is in a general way, it's dealing with the planning and the spending, and who spends and who makes the money and who gets to be in charge, who deals with the budgeting and financially, as far as you're concerned, who handles the burden, who foots the bill, who brings the money, who then controls the money, who do the planning, where does the money come from? And connected to that is loans and debts. Are you what's your belief in planning when it comes to borrowing and paying back loans? There are those I've encountered and spoken to who do not believe in loans whatsoever. Does not matter what the reason is. They don't believe in borrowing. And so now, if your partner is one of those kind, then you need to know it upfront, and then you figure out, therefore, okay, how are we going to maneuver and how are we going to handle financial crisis and those moments? What are we going to do? How are we going to set this aside? And so, with it comes the idea of budgeting and planning, and what's that going to look like? You need to have all of these discussions clearly. The other thing to discuss, 11, is maybe 12, is family health history. Now, there are certain kind of sicknesses, diseases that are hereditary, and you need to know some of the things. So, discuss these things. So, for example, is there anyone in your family lineage who had sickle cell? Anyone in your family history who had leprosy? Some of those kind, and someone in your family who was had asthma. It's very, very important to discuss these things to know, because first, because you're going to probably end up dealing with it. One, it becomes important to know, is your spouse having those kind of medical conditions as well, or who of the family members existing living at the moment has those conditions. And if it is zeroed down to that becoming somehow our responsibility or us being involved in taking care of them, what will that mean for us and how we're going to handle those issues becomes very, very important. A lot of people don't discuss family health history, and a lot of people don't deal uh, with those things, and therefore it becomes a concern later on when it's become an issue, when the responsibility as reason and expectations as reason, and it's coming as a shock, right? So the other thing to discuss with it is so connected to family. This is extended, the man's family and the lady's family, is the mental health history. Have there been any of such mental issues cases in the family, and how far along and in what generation, and who on which side? Again, these are just things, even though it sounds like it's not important, it sounds like just a by the way, these things matters. These things are important, and they should be, at least to you, if you're going to consider living your life with this person. Now, the other thing, number 13 probably, is medical examination. There are a lot of time, at least in Uganda, in probably East Africa, maybe for the most part in Africa, the only blood screening that most couples go for is the HIV screening. And the moment they discover, at least we're both HIV negative, they're like, wow, we're good, no problem. And yes, in part, it's a good thing to celebrate that aspect, but there's more. There's more. You need to test for fertility. And again, some of this test becomes expensive. For example, the fertility test is expensive, but you know, I mentioned earlier on the health history. Is there a sickle cell in the family? Has there been anyone who's asthmatic or anemic, and all of those things? And it becomes very, very important, because when you think of the compatibility aspect, that when the lady and the man in a way has similar blood system type in them, there are certain genes that makes it difficult for a lady to conceive if there are not compatibility between the lady and the man. And so again, consult with a doctor to go to a lab and make sure you do these things. There are many families that have struggled for years, and the lady either can't conceive or just keep having miscarriages. And then the medical issue is, the problem is in the was having to do with the compatibility between the man and the woman. And so these are things that we shouldn't take for granted. So besides going for screening, which for your HIV status and maybe other sexually transmitted diseases, it's important that you go the next step and do that as well. Now, the remaining three, number three is what what is that dream home like? What do they think when they think of the dream home? What kind of house do they think of when they think of a home? What kind of house do they want to build? And for the meantime, if you've not built and you're renting, which part of town, which part of the country do they want to live in, or at least are they willing to move to? And here's the reality: for the most part, for those of us who work, sometimes your work is going to take you to another place. You're going to be transferred, or you're going to get a job and you're posted somewhere else. Now, there are those who have ended up separating because one of the spouses did not agree with the idea of moving towns and moving to the other place or to the other town or to the other region, either because they didn't like the region because they felt it was far away, or it's more rural than urban in their mind or whatever, and then say, if you are going, if you decide to go for this job and move to that town, you're going alone, not with me. So you have to either you choose me and let the job go, or choose your job and forget about me. And that is a constant battle people are actually dealing with on the daily. And that is in part because they never sat to just ask a simple question and say, where would you be okay with, assuming we couldn't live here where we are right now in this town, in this city, where would you be comfortable? Which other place? Or at least ask, in this country, which part of the country would you feel more uncomfortable staying in and why? And so that they tell you, and then you talk about it. And eventually, that also helps you, whether when you're applying for a job or thinking of posting and all of those, that, okay, even though there's this opening in this place, in this town, or in this region, my spouse already does not like this place. So maybe it might be important that I consider not applying there and hope to just wait and apply somewhere else because he or she is not going to be comfortable or willing to go there. Sounds simple, but again, very, very important. The second last is career and educational goal. And here is, what have they already started? What academic level do they have as of now that you are seeing each other and thinking about marriage? And what is the plan? What's the mind? What's the goal when it comes to fathering of their education or considering a career change, which with it sometimes comes a need to go back to school? What's their take on further studies? Are they open to it? And if so, up to what level? And would they be open to you doing the same? Because there are those who say, you know what, once married, I don't think I want to bring education and going back to school on the picture again. There are men who will say, no, 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 when we're married, that's my wife, you'll now stay, work, yeah, stay home, do all of that, but going back to school, that's going to be too much. And sometimes the lady will say, for the guy, I don't think I would want to be married. And then my guy again is having to constantly deal with books, and or at least, you know what, I think up to master's level is fine, and beyond that I don't think it's okay, I don't think it's necessary, or we need it. And so again, all of those, you need it to know upfront. So for example, if your spouse wants think that you're thinking of going back to school, that you know that somewhere in the future, even after you're married, there's going to be 2, 3, 4 years, whatever period it's going to take, depending on what course they're going for or what level of education it's going to be, that they're going to be spending it at least doing schooling because they've gone back to further their studies because you've spoken about it ahead of time so that it does not come as a surprise and a shock at the end of it all, when you were married and you're expecting that your spouse is going to be doing this, this, and that with you, and then suddenly that they're going back to school, which with it mean finances is going towards paying the school fees and tuitions and everything else connected to that, and then that is affecting the family finances and the productivity. So again, you're seeing why this is very, very important. Last but not least, you need to talk about your political views and ideologies. What's their and when you think of political views, think of not just politics, but also ethical issues and moral stands on the different things that pops up. What is their take on it? What is their stand on that? And so I would put it not just political views, but politics, ethics, and morals. What is their take? What is their stand? And so make sure as you discuss the things, everything that you know matters to you, that you actually cover it, that you talk about these things. And any other thing that may be important to you, make sure you are intentional in having discussions. At the end of it all, each time you meet, make sure that you actually having some intentional heart-to-heart talk beyond just, I love you, I love you too, I miss you, I miss you too, you look so nice, you look great too. Those things is not going to get you farther in knowing each other's minds and intents and heart and plans and future ideologies. So be intentional in the kind of discussions you have and you're going to continue to have with your spouse. And like I said in the first video, there's probably more than the things I've mentioned here that would matter, that would require that you discuss. And that's why I've said at the end of it all that besides this, any other topic, any other thing that you know matters to you, that is important to you, that you talk about them, that you discuss them. Do not leave it to chance. Do not leave it to possibility. Do not leave it to assumption. Do not even say, well, my spouse is educated. He or she is learned and experienced, and I expect that they already know these things, and I expect that they're going to act the right way when it comes to this and this and that. Do not, if you've not spoken about it and you've not heard it from them, do not assume that what you think and what you believe is how it is going to be. And again, I want to wish you the best in your relationship as you continue forward with this building the relationship you're in. And I pray that God will bless, that God blesses you and this relationship you're building. And that when the time for marriage comes, that it yields fruits and fruits that remains, and that you will actually get to enjoy the fruit of marriage. God bless you.